Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling what is honestly one of the most fascinating puzzles in modern finance. I mean, think about the challenge here. Trying to build a robust, globally recognized market around a commodity that you cannot hold, you cannot touch, and you can't even see. This is the exact challenge of carbon markets, and today, we're going to decode exactly how the financial world attempts to solve it.
So, just pose this question to yourself for a second. How do you actually price an invisible asset? Because this is the central mystery. It is the fundamental crisis right at the heart of carbon markets. Look, when you buy a barrel of oil or an ounce of gold, you have a physical object, right? Its existence is undeniable. But when you buy a carbon credit, what are you actually buying? You're purchasing the absolute absence of something, a metric ton of carbon dioxide that was either removed from the atmosphere or, just never emitted in the first place. You can't put that in a box. So how on earth do buyers know they aren't just throwing their money into thin air?
Well, to answer that, we have to totally reframe our understanding. Carbon markets are fundamentally information markets. Unlike traditional commodities, the underlying asset, that emissions reduction, is not directly observable. Because of this, carbon credits really aren't physical goods at all. They are built entirely on data, credibility, and trust. If the measurement is flawed or if the data is manipulated, the asset simply doesn't exist. The value of a carbon credit is literally inextricably linked to the credibility of the information proving its existence.
So here's our roadmap for today. Number 1, the carbon trust problem. 2, data and measurement. 3, verification and sector challenges. And 4, digitization and fraud prevention.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the carbon trust problem.
Think of this first step like a manufacturing floor, where raw environmental outcomes are processed into actual value. And the ultimate mechanism doing this heavy lifting is MRV. That stands for monitoring, reporting, and verification. Experts consider this the absolute institutional and technical backbone of carbon markets. Its entire purpose is to ensure that emissions reductions and removals are accurately measured, consistently reported, and then independently verified. Because without MRV, you don't have a market. You just have, a collection of unverified environmental claims.
MRV literally transforms unobservable environmental outcomes into auditable financial assets. By doing this, MRV reduces what economists call information asymmetry and moral hazard. It essentially acts as the accounting standards and the audit frameworks for the carbon markets. Just like in the European Union's emissions trading system, where firms have to report verified emissions annually before their compliance obligations are settled, MRV ensures that every single ton of carbon represented on a ledger is backed by rigorous, undeniable evidence. Without that standard, capital withdraws and the whole market collapses.
Moving right along to Section 2, data and measurement.
To see the actual physical mechanics of how this happens, we have to look at these highly structured automated data pipelines. It's a 4-step process. Step 1 is raw data collection. This uses instruments like continuous emissions monitoring systems, or CEMS, which literally measures CO2 output in real time right at industrial facilities. Then we move to Step 2, processing protocols, which ensures all that data is formatted consistently. Step 3 is validation, where process controls ensure data integrity and traceability. And finally, Step 4 is reporting frameworks, packaging everything up so it can be audited. This rigorous architecture is incredibly similar to the enterprise risk management systems used by major banks. Weak data systems here immediately increase valuation uncertainty and transaction costs.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. In this data pipeline, true emissions equal measured emissions plus or minus epsilon. That epsilon, that represents measurement error, or uncertainty. And look, all emissions measurements involve some level of uncertainty, whether it's due to instrument limitations, estimation methods, or just data gaps. For example, forest carbon projects estimate carbon storage using sampling methods, which naturally involve statistical uncertainty. The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that uncertainty introduces financial risk. Higher uncertainty directly leads to lower credit confidence and potential pricing discounts in the market. Shrinking that epsilon is exactly how you increase a credit's value.
Let's jump into Section 3, verification and sector challenges.
So once data is reported, it enters a gauntlet to become credible. It has to be verified. But verification isn't just one size fits all. There's limited assurance, which provides a lower level of confidence at a lower cost, and then you have reasonable assurance, which gives much higher confidence, but at a significantly higher cost. This perfectly highlights a constant economic trade-off between the cost of auditing and the reduction of market risk. Large compliance markets generally demand that higher reasonable assurance level, while voluntary markets might vary a bit more. Ultimately, the assurance level heavily influences investor preference and market segmentation.
Furthermore, verification difficulty changes wildly depending on the sector. Take the energy sector. Measuring emissions from a straightforward industrial smokestack is relatively simple. But compare that to forestry, where you have massive, complex uncertainties about permanence. I mean, what if the forest simply burns down? Or agriculture, where you are literally trying to track diffuse methane from millions of cow burps. These sectoral differences directly lead to varying credit quality and pricing disparities, and they deeply influence project feasibility and scalability across the entire market.
Which brings us to our final section, digitalization and fraud prevention.
To overcome all those hurdles we just talked about and scale safely, we are seeing the massive rise of digital MRV. This is essentially a new foundational infrastructure layer for global carbon finance. We've got blockchain registries ensuring absolute traceability to prevent double counting. We have automated reporting systems collecting data continuously, drastically reducing human error and reporting delays. And real-time satellite monitoring, utilizing remote sensing, is completely transforming emissions data from periodic estimates into continuous measurement. We are literally watching land use change and deforestation from space. Digital MRV reduces transaction friction, it limits verification delays, and it seriously drives down that information asymmetry that plagues these markets.
But, and this is a big but, technology alone is not a silver bullet. Without independent verification and strict regulatory oversight, the market faces severe risks of poor governance. We're talking intentional data manipulation, double counting of the exact same credits across different jurisdictions, and outright fraudulent credit issuance. We have seen real-world cases where overcredited offsets led to immense public scrutiny and a total loss of trust. Fraud utterly undermines market integrity and pricing stability. If buyers lose trust in the governance of the data, demand collapses entirely, no matter how sophisticated the underlying technology is.
Which leaves us with this final, pretty provocative thought. Can technology ever fully replace trust? Think about it. Blockchain can ensure that a record is completely accurate and hasn't been tampered with, sure, but it cannot ensure the truth of the underlying environmental data before it was actually recorded. Market integrity is not the exact same thing as technological integrity. While digital MRV massively enhances transparency and scales our ability to measure the invisible, true integrity still requires credible governance, robust standards, and independent human oversight. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope you walk away looking at the invisible world of carbon markets in a completely new light.